Remember back in the day, you'd drive around all over the countryside. You could find these cheap cars for a couple $100, put a big motor in it, hot rod it. Remember back in the day, you could go pull one of these out of the wreckers, hit all the junkyards, get all the little parts and pieces for nothing, throw them in. Remember back in the day, you'd throw $2,000 at the junkyard, buy a bunch of parts, and basket case a car together. Remember back in the day, these cars were all over the place for $1,000. If you're in the car hobby and you're 40 years old or better, you sat down and had that conversation over and over with guys. And the older you are, the more of those conversations you've definitely had. So, welcome to the channel if you haven't been here before. And if you're returning to watch another video, I appreciate it. Look, I'm not a video guy. I'm not a movie maker. I work on cars. I help people with their projects. I've turned it into my living, and I enjoy it. I do it because I love doing it. Now, the reason I started the intro the way I did is because this car is a very nostalgic car. I did a couple videos a while back. I did one on this car about blue collar, affordable muscle, hot rods, that sort of thing. You know, and I've done a couple on my own 79 Firebird. But what you're looking at anyway is a 69 Dart. It's a 344 speed car, and it does have a 344 speed in it. Nothing on this car is particularly nice or perfect, but it runs great, and it's fast. There's a sure grip in it. It's a lot of fun to drive, and it's very solid. Now, what it isn't is it isn't a perfect example of a nice 69 Dart. Now, don't jump all over me. That happened in one of my other videos where I said, yeah, this thing is far from nice. And people are like, well, if I had it, and well, whatever. My point is, and I'm not picking on no one, I'm just saying this is not a nice car. This is a rough and tough car that's seen multiple Canadian body jobs back in like the 70s and 80s and somehow survived. But it's not a survivor because it's had body jobs. What it was, for the guy that owns it now, he bought a shell with doors and a trunk lid. So, he was basically at this guy's place looking for parts for a very nice 68 Dart that he restored to absolute mint condition. It is nicer than anything Dodge had ever produced. That's just a fact. He's got a beautiful 68 Dart, and I believe it's a 340 automatic car. However, he always wanted a 69, and he went to pick up a part someplace, and the guy had this shell, which he had bought off someone who said it was a race car. And he was going to restore it. He was buying all the parts. Then he decided to go another route. Instead of doing the quarters and what this would really need, he found a southern body that someone had imported to Canada from Arizona. So he took all his pieces and stripped stuff off this car and built a really nice car. So what you have here is a parts car that became a donor car, that became a donor car again, and back and forth and so on, and again became another parts car. And then this guy decided, well, it was also a parts car, the guy that owns it now. But once he was finished with his car and realized he had this shell with a dash and a title ownership, right? He could put this on the road. So he looked at the car and realized it wasn't nice, but it was definitely solid. Now, nice and solid are a matter of opinion, depending on who you are. In California, this wouldn't be a nice car in California, or solid, right? In Arizona, this would be the parts car and you'd buy a real nice body. In Ontario, Canada, I'm going to say maybe Detroit, Michigan, you know what I'm saying? Chicago, this would be a rusty car, but it's solid. A guy could fix it, so you'd fix it. If you were down south, you wouldn't fix this car. So if you're in Arizona wondering why we're welding this thing up, maybe this channel's not for you, but I hope it is, and I hope you follow along and see what we go through with the salt and the junk, whatever, right? So the story on this car, we ended up finding out through another guy we knew who was into drag racing. He recognizes this car and says he knows for sure that this is a car that was raced in Shannonville, Ontario at the Quarter Mile Drag Strip. He believes in the 90s and possibly into the 2000s. He figured like 1990 to maybe 2004, 2005. After that, he wasn't at that track. And then, of course, later he went back and, I mean, this car was long gone. Now, I sent a picture to a guy that I know who's raced for 30, 40 years on and off in Shannonville. And he recognized the picture of this car. And he's going to get back to me. And if he does, we'll tell that story. But hopefully we find out a little more history on the car, just for fun. So this video today isn't a how-to video or anything like that. We're not going to reminisce too much. But we'll just basically talk about the car for a moment, and I'll show you where we're at with the work we've done. We don't want to change the car from what it was. We're going to leave it as the race car it was. You know, keep the car true to what it was for most of its better life, I guess you could say. We're only going to paint from the body line down, just below this shadow. We got the orange. Hopefully it matches close enough. Best we can do, because we don't know what's on the car. But we got a color out of the 70s from Dodge that looks really, really close to what this is. This is not the vitamin C orange that you're thinking. And then this was an original darker orange that you could have got on these cars. This seems to be what was it called? Sun. Give me 2 seconds. I'll get you that name. Somebody's going to ask. Nope, definitely not Arizona beige. Definitely not red. Just bear with me. Got a lot of stuff going on and off with different things. There you go. DT 5229 Sunrise Orange. So 70s Dodge color. When we put that sample, well, of what's in the can, I don't know if that's what this is for sure. It looks to be. It does look like the vitamin C orange. So if it looks like vitamin C orange on camera, that could be why. The only difference is it looks like they took the metallic out of it in the 70s. So some of the trucks and whatnot came with this, you know, basic solid color orange. Which somebody obviously went down to the auto parts store and said, I want orange. It's a Dodge. And we figure that's what happened here. At any rate, the guy put this car together because he had all the pieces kicking around. He's got a bit of a private junkyard full of Valiants and Valaris and Darts and four-door Darts and all kinds of stuff. He had a spare engine and transmission out of a 70 from years ago that he salvaged and put away, which is what's in this car now. So the car's a 69, but nothing matches. Don't know what the diff is out of, but it does have a sure grip in it, so he went through it, resealed everything, and put it back together. And he says it's got all kinds of power and torque down low, but moves down the highway just fine in fourth. So you guys tell me the gear ratio he didn't measure, he doesn't care, and I don't either. But it's not like a steep drag gear anymore. And you could tell that the rear end was just kind of sitting in there with a set of springs that weren't really good. So the owner that has it now went through the rear end and axles and who knows what all he swapped out. So I don't know if the sure grip was even in there, if he just had a center section and he threw it in. At any rate, that's what's in it now. And it seems to be really good.